1957. A one-car garage on a Saturday afternoon in Ohio. Sawdust hanging in the light from the one window. A man kneels at his workbench, and beside him, sitting on an upturned bucket so he can reach, is his son, 7 years old. The father takes a wooden-handled tool off the pegboard, wraps the boy's small hand around it, lays his own hand over the top, and together they push it down a rough pine board. A curl of wood peels up, thin as paper, and the board underneath comes up smooth as glass. The boy laughs. He has just felt a hand plane work for the first time, and he will remember the feeling for the rest of his life. Nobody is filming it. Nobody calls it a lesson. It is just a Saturday, and a tool, and a father teaching a son how the world is made. These are 10 tools from a 1950s workshop, and every one of them is a small piece of pure design genius. So simple it lasts a lifetime. So clever it still does its job better than you would expect. This is not about hand tools versus power tools. The men who own these often owned both, and reached for whichever was right. It is about how good a thing can be when someone gets the design exactly right. And number one is not the cleverest tool on the list. It is the one that made all the others worth owning. Number 10, the folding rule. Before a tape measure lived in every pocket, a man carried a folding rule, boxwood or maple, hinged in brass, that opened out from the size of a pencil to a full 6 feet and locked dead straight at every joint. And the genius is in the details. The hinges are riveted so they hold their position without flopping. The numbers are stamped and inked so they survive a lifetime in a sawdust apron. And in the end section slides a thin brass extension so a man can measure the exact inside of a drawer or a window frame, push the brass out to meet the wall, and read the true measurement without guessing. It is a whole set of measuring tools folded into something that fits in a shirt pocket. A tape measure is faster. It is not smarter. Number 9, the sliding bevel. It looks like nothing, a wooden handle and a flat steel blade that pivots out of it and locks with the thumb screw. You loosen the screw, lay the blade against the angle, whatever it is, the slope of a stair, the corner of an old roof, tighten it down, and now that exact angle is captured. Carry it across the room, across the yard, across the whole job, and mark the same angle again perfectly. It does not care what the number is. It just remembers the shape. That is a genuinely clever idea, worked out in wood and brass long before anyone thought to call it a tool that stores information. A craftsman who knows it never has to know the number at all. Number 8. The push drill. Pick it up and it feels like a fat screwdriver, but push down on the handle and the tip spins fast, driving a small bit clean through wood with nothing but the weight of your hand. They call it the Yankee, and inside it is a steel spiral, so every push turns the bit and every release springs it back, ready for the next stroke. No crank, no cord, no battery, just a downward push and a hole appears. It even stores its own bits inside the handle. For starting screws, drilling pilot holes, or quick work up a ladder where dragging a cord makes no sense, it is still one of the fastest tools ever made. There are men on job sites today who keep one in the truck for exactly that reason. It was that good the first time. Number 7, the brace and bit. This is the tool that bores the big holes, the one shaped like a flattened letter D that you cradle against your chest with one hand and sweep around with the other. And the genius is leverage. That wide sweep gives a man enormous turning force, enough to drive a 2-inch auger bit clean through a fence post or a floor joist by hand. Better still, it has a ratchet, so in a tight corner where you cannot make a full turn, you rock it back and forth and it still drives forward. It is quiet, it never overheats, and it will bore a truer, cleaner hole than most people manage with a power drill in a hurry. The old carpenters called it doing it right the first time, and they were not being sentimental. They were being accurate. Number 6, the eggbeater drill. One viewer of a list like this pointed out that this tool is too often left off, and he was right because it earns its place. It is the little hand drill that looks exactly like a kitchen eggbeater, a crank on the side that spins a set of gears which spin the small bit at the tip. Turn the handle slow and steady, and it drills a neat, controlled hole for a screw or a hinge with a delicacy a power drill cannot match. There is no sudden torque to tear the wood, no wandering, no burnt smell, just a hole exactly where you want it, as deep as you choose, for fine work, hanging a cabinet door, setting a small hinge. The eggbeater gives you a control your hands can feel. Slow is not the same as worse. Quick word before we go on. If you own even one of these, or you learned them at your father's elbow, take a second and subscribe, because the last few are the best of the lot, and number 1 is the tool that every other one on this list depends on. All right, back to it. Number 5, the spokeshave. Its name tells you its first job, shaping the wooden spokes of a wheel, but it does anything with a curve. It is a tiny blade set between two handles, and you draw it along a piece of wood, peeling off a fine shaving and leaving a smooth, flowing curve behind. Chair legs, tool handles, the round edge of a paddle, a banister, anywhere a straight tool cannot follow the shape. The spokeshave rides the curve like it was made for it, because it was. The genius is that it puts the whole of a plain blade, depth, and control into something small enough to steer with 2 thumbs. A man shaping an axe handle with a spokeshave is doing something people have done for hundreds of years, and it still cannot really be improved. It simply fits the hand in the wood at the same time. Number 4, the scraper. This one looks like the least impressive tool ever made. A flat rectangle of steel, no handle, no moving parts, no edge you would even call sharp. And it produces a finish that sandpaper cannot touch. The trick is in the edge. You turn a tiny hook onto it with a hardened rod, and when you flex the steel and draw it across the wood, that hook lifts a whisper-thin shaving and leaves a surface so smooth it shines, with none of the fine scratches sandpaper always leaves behind. No dust cloud, no power, no noise. A piece of flat steel in a few seconds to sharpen it, and a tabletop comes up like glass. Furniture makers who care about a surface still reach for it first. It is proof that genius does not have to look like anything at all. Number 3, the combination square. Here the cleverness is right out in the open, because it is 4 tools pretending to be one. A steel rule, and sliding along it a heavy head that gives you a perfect 90-degree square on one side and a 45-degree miter on the other. Set into that head is a little bubble level. Tucked in the end is a steel scribe for marking a line. Loosen the head and it becomes a depth gauge, or a marking gauge that draws a line perfectly parallel to an edge. One tool in a jacket pocket, and a man can square a cut, check a corner for level, mark a board, and measure a depth without reaching for anything else. It was designed in the 1800s, and it has barely changed since, because there was almost nothing left to fix. That is what genius looks like when it is finished. One quick thing before the last one. If this has brought back the smell of your father's workshop, tap the like button. It helps a small channel like this reach the next person who grew up the same way. All right, number 1. Number 2, the bench plane. If a 1950s workshop had a heart, this was it, the Stanley Number Four. A block of cast iron and a blade sitting on the bench like it owned the place. And what it does still feels like a small miracle. You set the blade a hair below the sole, push it down a rough, ugly board, and a continuous ribbon of wood lifts up and floats to the floor, leaving behind a surface flat and smooth and faintly gleaming. The genius is in the adjustment. A brass wheel behind the blade sets the depth of cut down to a fraction of a hair. A little lever swings it left or right to keep it true. A man learns to read the shaving, thin as tissue, and knows by looking whether the tool is set right. It takes practice, real practice, and that is the point. The plane does not do the work for you. It makes you good at the work. Number 1, the sharpening stone. Here it is, and it is not the cleverest tool on the list. It is the humblest, a flat gray stone in a little wooden box, a few drops of oil across its face. But it is the one that makes all the others worth owning, because every tool on this list, the plane, the scraper, the spokeshave, the chisel, is only genius as long as it is sharp, and the moment it dulls, it becomes useless and dangerous both. The stone is what keeps the edge alive, and this is the tool a father teaches first. Before the boy on the bucket is ever handed the plane, he is shown the stone, the oil, the angle, the 20 strokes aside, how to test the edge on the hair of his own arm. Because the real genius was never in any single tool. It was in the hand that knew how to keep it sharp, and in the man who sat a boy down and passed that knowledge on. The tools last a lifetime. What lasts longer is what gets taught over them. So when a man in his 80s opens a wooden toolbox and shows you a plane his father gave him, understand what you are really looking at. You are not looking at old iron. You are looking at a whole way of learning the world, one tool at a time, from someone who loved you enough to slow down and show you. These tools were pure genius, yes, in their design, in the way a simple idea in steel and wood could last 100 years. But the greater genius was that they were simple enough to teach, simple enough to hand to a 7-year-old on a bucket and say, "Here, like this." Somewhere in a quiet garage this weekend, a curl of pine is lifting off a board, thin as paper, and a small hand is learning the feel of it. That is not a lost world. It only takes one Saturday, one tool, and one person willing to show the way. So tell me down in the comments, what is the one tool your father or your grandfather put in your hands, and do you still have it? I read every single one, and those stories are the best part of this channel.